My girlfriend tried secretly transferring her student loans to my name while splurging on luxury trips. So, I reported her. At 31, I thought I had finally found someone I could build a future with. I met her when I was living in Vancouver, at a friend's rooftop gathering during one of those late summer evenings where everything feels possible. She was 29, charming, intelligent, and worked at a wellness center as a therapist. I worked as a civil engineer, managing mid-scale infrastructure projects. My income was stable, and I lived modestly in a 2-bedroom apartment not far from the water. Within 6 months, our relationship had progressed enough that she asked to move in. Her roommate had moved out unexpectedly, and she framed it as the logical decision. She was already staying over most nights, and sharing expenses would help us both financially. I was hesitant but agreed, thinking this could be the next step in our journey. At first, things seemed to be working well. She offered to split the household costs evenly, and I appreciated that initiative. But the first sign of trouble came shortly after she moved in. She missed her share of the utility bills for 2 straight months. When I asked her about it, she tearfully explained that she was drowning in student loan debt, over $100,000, and her job paid just enough to cover her essential expenses. Wanting to be supportive, I covered the bills and reassured her she could catch up when things got better. But what followed didn't align with someone struggling financially. Despite her complaints about debt and living paycheck to paycheck, she started taking weekend trips with her friends, to Whistler, to Seattle, to Napa Valley. She justified these getaways by claiming she needed them for mental wellness and that she deserved to unwind. I also noticed a flood of online shopping packages arriving at our door. High-end brands, luxury skincare, designer handbags, items that didn't fit the story of someone living frugally. Yet when rent was due, there was always a crisis. A sudden car repair, an unplanned medical bill, or a family emergency. The pattern repeated itself, and I began to see a disconnect between her words and actions. Soon, she started leaving pamphlets about student loan consolidation programs on my desk. Subtle comments followed about how couples support each other financially. She told me how her friend's partner had paid off all her loans, and that such gestures were signs of deep commitment. At first, I brushed it off as wishful thinking on her part, but over time it started to feel more deliberate. The situation escalated when I overheard her talking on the phone with one of her friends, laughing about how she was going to get me to take over her loans. She called me easy to manipulate, and joked that once I refinanced the debt in my name, she'd finally be able to book her dream trip to Paris. Shocked and feeling betrayed, I decided to take a closer look at what was really going on. While looking for my passport in her drawer, where she had placed some of our shared documents, I stumbled across a credit card statement. To my disbelief, she had spent over $100,000 in the past few months. Spa treatments, upscale dining, designer apparel, and travel bookings were all listed in bold, unapologetic lines. Among the papers, I found a filled-out loan application with my name on it. Somehow, she had obtained my personal details, possibly from shared documents, and attempted to submit paperwork to transfer her loans under my name. It was no longer a matter of financial irresponsibility. It was clear, premeditated fraud. When I confronted her, she immediately deflected. Accusations of invading her privacy were followed by performative tears. She insisted the European trip was meant as a surprise for both of us, and that the loan papers were just a way to explore our financial options. But her explanations didn't hold. The lies had stacked too high. When I refused to be guilt-tripped or manipulated, her demeanor changed. She warned me that she had rights as a tenant and would not leave quietly. What she didn't know was that I had already spoken to a legal advisor. With their help, I began documenting everything: her spending, her lack of financial contribution, and the forged loan documents. I also recorded the phone call where she openly discussed her scheme. In British Columbia, single-party consent recordings are legal, and I made sure every piece of evidence was securely stored. I told her calmly that I had filed a police report regarding the attempted identity theft and fraud. I gave her 24 hours to vacate the apartment, or I would pursue charges. Her reaction was explosive. She screamed, threatened to accuse me of abuse, and claimed she would destroy my reputation. But I had already spoken to my close friends and family, sharing the evidence to protect myself from exactly this kind of retaliation. She attempted damage control by reaching out to mutual friends and spinning a story of emotional abuse and financial manipulation. It didn't work. The receipts, literal and metaphorical, spoke louder. Screenshots of her lavish spending alongside her messages begging me to cover rent left no room for doubt. Even her attempts to smear me online failed. After I responded with the audio clip of her bragging about her scheme, she deleted the posts within hours. In her final hours at the apartment, she tried to transfer money from my bank account to hers. Luckily, I had changed all my passwords and added two-factor authentication. I reported this attempted theft as well, adding to the mounting case against her. As she was packing, she tried one last tactic. Crying in the driveway, she claimed to have a gambling addiction, saying all her reckless spending was a coping mechanism. She begged me to help her pay off her loans so she could seek therapy. But the timing was too convenient, and the story didn't hold. She was a licensed therapist. If she truly had an addiction, she would have known better than to weaponize it in a last-ditch effort to regain sympathy. Eventually, she left. I changed the locks, installed a security system, and finalized the police report. I also sent her a certified notice demanding payment of the $6,800 she owed in unpaid rent and utilities. 2 weeks later, she was served legal papers at her workplace. The charges of attempted identity theft and financial fraud were taken seriously. She pleaded guilty and was ordered by the court to repay what she owed. She also received 2 years of probation and mandatory financial counseling. Worse for her, she lost her professional license. Her career in mental health effectively ended. Last I heard, she had moved back to her hometown and was working part-time at a retail store. Her student loan debt, now unmanageable, continues to accumulate interest. As for me, I've learned that blind support can be dangerous when it replaces self-respect. The warning signs were there, but I chose to overlook them in the name of love and partnership. I've since rebuilt my life, strengthened my boundaries, and become more cautious about who I let into my world. If there's one thing I've taken away from this experience, it's that manipulation often wears the mask of vulnerability. Trust your instincts, protect your information, and don't allow someone's charm to override your judgment. Thanks for listening the story. If you want more real-life lessons like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel